Ever since the very beginning of Room of the Mad God, developers have played around with the idea of an NPC, whereas the currently most known NPC is Guill, a friendly NPC you can find in your guild hall. The experienced player might also know of the Nexus Crier, which had the same sprite as Guill. It was an NPC standing in Nexus from 2012 to 2013, screaming out news in the Nexus. It was also possible to interact with this NPC in some way by typing the word fat. In public builds, this is one of the first times we saw an NPC being interactable. But what if I told you that we had an NPC before the Nexus Crier, even before 2011? This is today's video's topic, Jeebs. Who is Jeebs? And who is the P princess, may I add? With NoobHereo's help, we have all of this visualized for you to enjoy. So let's go through it. First, we'll have a look at Jeebs. Jeebs is very much the same as Guill is now. He surely did serve an inspiration for Guill to be added later on, because Guill is very similar to Jeebs. Jeebs was scrapped, so we never got to see him in the real game, but he was meant to stand in the MATLAB. Here he would answer questions for the players if they had anything on their mind. One of his voice lines gives us a clue as to when he was supposed to be added. If the player typed how to get to Oryx, he would reply, "In order to enter Oryx's lair, you need to slay enough monsters in a realm. This will anger Oryx and he will summon you to his lair." For one thing, there was no such thing as an Oryx castle back then. And also, you might see that Oryx's chamber was actually named Oryx's lair at first. Another voice line also gives us a clue. Pets. If the player types pets, Jeebs will reply with, "Pets are cosmetic creatures that will daringly follow you around wherever you go. They cannot be hurt, but make sure not to die with them or they will be lost." Bear in mind, this was from a time where pets wouldn't heal you or give you any form of benefits. Pets were wearable through your inventory. You would have to double click them and they would just follow you around and do, well, nothing. You can also ask him a wide range of other questions which will trigger a reply. These are not that interesting though, since they haven't changed much through the years. There's only one thing that confuses me a bit, because you can type Thessal and trigger a reply. The reply is very vague though, which might indicate that it was just meant as an Easter egg for future builds. The Ocean Trench was added in build 122, which would be the start of 2012. That's a bit odd, since in 2012 Oryx's chamber was indeed named Oryx's chamber and not Oryx's lair. Either, as I said, this was just made as an Easter egg for future builds, maybe teasing the happening of an Ocean Trench. The line could also have been added later on, or maybe the Oryx lair thing is just a leftover from the past, because Guill was never realized as a fully functioning NPC in the real game. I would estimate the idea of his existence as an origin from 2010. Well, that'll be it on Jeebs. Let's move on to the P princess, or rather, just the princess. She is a bit of a unique NPC because you can damage her. Her behavior is also very weird. She does respect social distancing, so that's something. Her existence is probably a reference to either Zelda or Peach, and I can only wonder what her function would have been. Maybe a captive in Oryx's lair? Perhaps a quest in-game? Maybe a hostile NPC undercover, like the Lost Girl from Terraria? She has an introduction phase, which I just showed you, where she talks to you. And the second phase, where she basically just screams for help and is useless, but also killable. And when you finally get to her, my hero. Ew, bitch, what the fuck? Both of these NPCs were pulled from builds that allegedly were from 2010, so I assume her to be so. Not to excite you or leave you on a cliffhanger, but there's more. There are more of these things. More in-game content that has not seen the light of day since it was introduced to the developers back in 2010, 2011, 2012. Before, this knowledge was only in possession of those who had the power to go into the game files. But my goal is to also show it to the average player, so that everyone knows about all of these awesome things that were back in the day. And I'll continue to do that, so stay tuned, because we're gonna look at Feral sometime in the future too. So, stay tuned, stay interested in the game's past and not only the future. And I'll see you in the next Realm Classic Mystery video.